When Israeli actress Noa Tishby moved to Los Angeles, she was astonished at the widespread misunderstanding of her home country. So she wrote a book. Here's CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl's interview with Noa Tishby.
Noa Tishby, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
You're an actress and an author of a new book, Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth. Why did you write your book, and why do you think Israel is misunderstood?
Yeah, I've been living in America in Los Angeles for a very long time, and since I started coming here, I realized the severe misunderstanding that people have about Israel. Misunderstanding about Israel is not an Israeli issue or a Jewish issue. It's a U.S. national security issue and Western civilization issue. So for people to not know what Israel is about is a real dangerous thing. And I found a way to explain people everything about Israel in a kind of way which was easy. You know, it was comprehensible, it was relatable. I would sit with them for 10 minutes and explain, you know, these are the borders, that's the difference between Hamas and the PA. And they would be like, oh, I get it now. And the next question they would have is there a book I can read? And I knew that there's no book that makes the story of Israel easy to understand and modern and relatable. And I'm like, well, better write it then. So I did. The reason I gave it this title, so it's called Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth. So obviously it's hyperbole. The discrepancy that I found is between the difference between how much people don't know about Israel, but how many strong opinions they actually have. The most misunderstood country on earth, not necessarily because it's the most misunderstood country on earth, but it's the country that has the most amount of passion, arguments, and debates, and people tending to have an opinion without knowing any of the facts at all.
Anti-Semitism, we're hearing a lot about that. It seems to be on the rise in America and around the world. What do you think is spurring that at this time, and what can be done to stop that?
Anti-Semitism is the oldest form of discrimination, which is still practiced today proudly. It's a very old practice. It's as old as the Jewish people. In my book, I talk about historian Josephus Flavius, who in 70 AD in Rome wrote a book called The Antiquities of the Jews in order to fight pagan anti-Semitism. What we have seen in the past few years, and specifically in the conflict in May, is the merger of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So anti-Semitic forces have been trying to brand Israel an apartheid state and have been raising anti-Semitism because people take everything that the state of Israel does to blame the entire Jewish community. And if that's not anti-Semitism, I don't know what it is.
One of the forms that seems to take is the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement against Israel. How can that be combated, do you think?
BDS is a movement which is interested in dismantling the Jewish state, period, end of story. Their founders don't hide it. The majority of the supporters don't hide it. But what they do is when they show up on campus, they don't stand there at a table and say, oh, let's dismantle democracy. They say justice and freedom and use all these words. In their entire writing, they don't say the word peace one time. BDS is against the Abraham Accord. BDS is against peace. BDS's chant, their supporters chant, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is a call for ethnic cleansing, and it should be very concerning.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
They're trying to brand Israel an apartheid state like South Africa, and I go into this deep dive and going through congressional hearings about their sources of funding and what they are about. They should not be allowed on campuses in America. They're poisoning our youth.
Do you think that people in America or elsewhere in the world, do they really have a clear idea of the relations between Jews and Arabs here in the Middle East, do you think?
When you live in Israel, coexistence is there all the time. So from the United States, this looks horrible and it looks like the sides are always sparring. And then you go to a pharmacy in Israel and the Arab pharmacist and gives you your medicine and it's a non-issue. So of course, there are a lot of problems within Israel. But what I say is a lot of the times the debate in America is kind of using red herrings and like catnip in order to divert from the actual big story, which is Israel is the only country in which its existence is being questioned.
Anything else you'd like to tell us, Noa, about your book?
I've been on your network before, and it's got a little bit of a salty language, but it's a very fun history book, and I think it would make a great Christmas gift.
Still ahead, swimming with the dolphins in Israel's main resort town, Eilat.